So we looked at the waves and tropical cyclogenesis. We looked at easterly waves, and we mentioned MJOs, Rossby waves, Rossby gravity waves, and so on. Here we'll look a little bit at the mesoscale influences on tropical cyclogenesis. We have already mentioned mesoscale convective systems that are a part of the tropical easterly waves and so on as well. But we will look here specifically at subtropical storms, which can produce incipient vortices and that communicate down. So here is a subtropical storm, for example, of a low pressure type, the subtropical low, which is fueled by cold warm air interactions. So baroclinic instability becomes critical. In the tropics, the gradients are flatter, and the cyclogenesis is done by these waves which are coming off of West Africa or going from the Indian Ocean into the Pacific Ocean, or the monsoon trough and the ITCZ, easterly waves, and so on and so forth. Here the energy from the ocean comes after the baroclinic instability has been kicked off with various criteria that are required to demand energy from the surface. In the monsoon region, these are the monsoon depressions, which actually during the season can bring quite a bit of the seasonal total rainfall. But once the monsoon activity is beginning in terms of the trough moving in from the Northwest Pacific into the Bay of Bengal before the monsoon onset around June 1st, there are monsoon depressions which also are mesoscale systems that influence cyclogenesis in this region. In fact, the cyclones that have been born in the last few years during May, almost into June as well, like Vayu in 2020, I think, Nisarga and Taukte in 2021, Yash in 2021, were all in the pre-monsoon May, second half of May in fact, and benefited from the interactions with the monsoon trough. We talked about the tropical and extratropical cyclones before, and we said tropical cyclones get their energy from the ocean. Strongest winds are close to the surface. There is a warm core. Winds get weaker and the flow gets anticyclonic aloft, whereas there is cyclonic convergence below. So the symmetry and lack of fronts here is clear compared to the extratropical cyclone, which has this distortion and strongest winds tend to be above. We talked about this a little bit already. So the subtropical storms can start as either a cold core or a warm core disturbance. The main idea there is the baroclinic instability. So here there is a cold let's say a cold front or a trough moving in and bringing in potential vorticity and reversing the gradient, and then there is a westerly system moving in which is reversing the gradient. That is kind of one of the criteria for baroclinic instability, and that is communicated to the surface, and if they are together in phase, then you can get potential temperature increasing from convection, and you get strong potential temperature gradient in the vertical. Then you have removal of PV or reversal of PV by various processes, like depending on what happens between the surface and the system aloft in terms of being in phase. Rossby waves may be created, which give us mesoscale activities, and essentially the system that is formed aloft from baroclinic instability has to put the vorticity down to the surface, and the vertical shear has to be reduced. Okay, so you can look at these papers to understand the details of the processes, but in general subtropical storms are often not correctly identified, and I think the system is being changed now to name them in the same way as tropical cyclones once they are formed. So this is, I think, Diane Hurricane Diane from 1984, which clearly formed way off in the subtropics as a storm and then put the incipient vortex down, had the appropriate conditions evolving in terms of reduced shear, vortex getting stronger, convective activity getting stronger to build up the cyclonic structure, and then became strong and then went off into the extratropics and transitioned. Another example here is from Australia. This is about 10 south here, should be, and this is so way south in the subtropics, and you can see that it's got a nice structure in the clouds, and it reached down to the surface and also had incipient vortex that accounts for cyclogenesis. This is an example of the moisture loading in a subtropical storm. You can see the latitudes here, Florida, Georgia, South and North Carolina, and so on. And obviously you can see the fronts and formation in the top, and then this process is going to interact with the surface, and that's critical. Baroclinic instability, you remember the sharp temperature gradients, vertical shear, and then the baroclinic instability. So this is essentially referred to as baroclinic cyclogenesis. Okay, so the details of the processes are there in that Guichard paper that you can look up, but as always, remember that cyclogenesis is mostly about going back in time after a cyclone has formed to see how the incipient vortex was created and why it survived and grew into a cyclone. And hopefully those understandings will get better and help us forecast the cyclogenesis itself ahead of time, so that you can be better prepared for dealing with the cyclone that will come out of that.